Welcome in, latest episode of that SEC podcast. I'm your host, Michael Bratton. Go by SEC Mike on the Twitters. And there he is, our great friend, Stephen Lassan, senior editor over at Athlon Sports. Stephen, how are you?
Mike, I'm doing great. What a crazy weekend of games. I am trying to make sense of all of that as we get ready to go into week 6, which means October is here. Where the heck did the first month of the season go, right?
Yeah, it's come and gone. I like to not think of it like that, Stephen. I like to think about all the games we got to come ahead. But that is a great way to let the cousins know we're going to do something just slightly different this episode. A lot of the same content, but Stephen and I are trying to keep it fresh. So at some point during this show, we're going to talk about the September awards for the SEC. Who's been the MVP, offensive player, defensive player, coach of the year, and our current picks to go to the SEC championship and to win the SEC championship. So a lot in store, Stephen. And, man, we got a lot to talk about. Coaches getting fired, Panic Meter, bowl projections, playoff projections. It's going to be a good show. You know what?
Mike, I sure hope so, because it would match the games this weekend, wouldn't it? Holy cow. Man, consult your cardiologist if you're a fan of the SEC this year.
No doubt. And hey, before we get rolling, as always, Stephen, got to remind the cousins, go check them out over at MyBookie, the presenting sponsor of the show this football season. They're back again. This is the 4th season in a row. MyBookie is the presenting sponsor. MyBookie.ag is the website. Put in that promo code SEC when you put in an initial deposit, and they're going to hook you up with a free one-time wager, Stephen. Whatever your initial deposit is, it's fully guaranteed over at MyBookie, which means if you lose it, let's say it's $50, they'll give you that 50 right back in your account to keep on playing over at MyBookie. So we appreciate their support this football season. All right, Stephen. Oh, yeah, shout out Liquid. Appreciate you. 8 for 8 in the picks. That means I zoomed past old Stephen, but Stephen he's hanging in there. He's just one below me, but the cousin's still dominating the picks, Stephen, so you got to pick it up. You got to pick it up next week, buddy.
Mike, I'm motivated like Mark Stoops to turn this thing around. There's still too much of the season to go. So, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. We're going to get there.
No doubt. And who's always there, Stephen, is the legend, JR. He's back again. He's been with us all day. Shout out, JR.
Legend, cousin JR has done it again.
Thank you, JR. He has gifted Denny Hines. Denny, welcome to
the family.
Yeah, thank you, JR. What a legend. As is Stephen Up. We appreciate you, buddy. We love all Stevens on this show. Stephen Up, special place in our heart.
Always showing up for them boys in Tuscaloosa. It's Stephen Up. Roll Tide.
Thank you, Stephen. He gifted up Sean Pittman. Any relation to Sam? I don't know. But Sean, you're always welcome here. Welcome to
the family.
Yeah, shout out Sean and shout out JR. Oh, we also got, look at that. We got Alyssa D. I got a special message for you.
Welcome to the family.
Thank you, Alyssa, for joining. We appreciate the support. And Matt, Hookem. What's up, cuz? I've been pissed, got kicked to the night shift before the season started. Have to watch all the shows after they air. Hookem. Well, you're here now, Matt. Or I don't know why I keep calling you Matt. Hookem. We appreciate you, buddy. Have no fear. Norwegian is here. And Too Tall Paul Stephen. How about them Rebels? Let's start right there. How surprised are you, Stephen? You picked LSU. But in fairness to you, you said this is a complete coin toss. And heck, we didn't know, and I think it was evident by watching the game, how injured Garrett Nussmeier is. If we could have known that, I think maybe your pick would have been a little bit different.
100%, Mike. I think we got to start off. Stephen needs to apologize to Ole Miss for picking them, picking LSU over Ole Miss on Saturday. Mike, I thought it was pretty telling, and you can tell me if I'm crazy here. I thought Lane Kiffin and that staff really outcoached LSU, and certainly Garrett Nussmeier's injury, I think, played a part in that. But I thought early in that game, Ole Miss was trying to, LSU's defense is legit, I think. Like, I know they maybe gave up a lot of yards on Saturday. I think they're still an upper half defense in the SEC. I thought you kind of got the sense early in that game, Ole Miss was trying to kind of feel its way through. This is the best defense they played. Then once they settled in, I don't know if 24-19 was necessarily indicative of kind of how they probably should have won this game. I mean, they outgained LSU 480 to 254. And we talk about coaching. How about the job Pete Golding and this staff have done? Completely revamped defense, holding LSU to 254 yards. Not a great sign when Ole Miss is getting pressure with three-man fronts. You can't run the ball. Pretty obvious what the flaws right now are for LSU. So just a coaching job here by Lane Kiffin on he and Golding on defense, the way they've brought Trinidad Chambliss along. Congrats to Ole Miss. And Stephen was very wrong about this, and his pick was largely because he thought Nussmeier was going to be a lot healthier, and that's clearly not the case.
Right, and this is something you were telling me off air, Stephen, that you really like the Rebels' chances, given their schedule, to make the SEC championship. If you're just listening back later, Ole Miss on a bye this week, of course, but then they get Washington State at home, at Georgia, that'll be tough, at Oklahoma. If John Mateer's back and fully healthy, that's going to be incredibly tough, as well as Georgia, of course. South Carolina at home, Citadel at home, Florida at home, and then a second bye before the Egg Bowl in Starkville. But already off to a great start, 3-0 in the conference, number one in the SEC by a wide margin currently. Why are your confidence level? And I mean, it goes without saying, but why are you so confident in Ole Miss right now?
Mike, I think go back to something we talked about in the offseason. Do you remember the year after the year? The theory that it could happen? It may happen here for Ole Miss. I also think this Ole Miss team can only get better too, because I think Chambliss or Austin Simmons will continue to get better at quarterback. And also I think the defense can only get better. Just given all the new pieces, trying to fit all these new faces in, there's room to grow here. But let's look at their schedule, Mike. And they get Washington State. They're going to be 6-0. At Georgia, at Oklahoma, certainly I would put those in the toss-up category. Georgia looks more vulnerable. Do we know what Oklahoma looks like without John Mateer, with or without at this point? That's a question going forward. I think South Carolina, Citadel, Florida, those are wins. So if you give Washington State in the W column for Ole Miss, you're looking at 9-0 with 3 toss-ups. I think Mississippi State's going to be pretty tough at the end of the year. If you go 1-2 in those games, you're making the playoff at 10-2 from the SEC. If you go 2-1 in those games, you're making the SEC championship. So I think we're going to have some upsets, but I think the schedule and what we've seen from Ole Miss sets up well for at least getting to the college football playoff. And right now, I think they would have to be one of your front runners to make the SEC championship.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's always difficult to tell these types of things, Stephen, but with the LSU's struggles on offense, Saturday's performance, was that indicative of the struggles for LSU, or perhaps, you know, the Ole Miss defense taking some strides? Probably the truth is somewhere in between, but we got to give them credit where credit's due, and the defense is getting better after getting toasted by Arkansas. But heck, they made literally the only play that mattered in that game to close it out, at least the only play on the defensive side of the football for either team, forcing a turnover. Sometimes it just takes one play. Ole Miss made it, and that's a big reason why they're undefeated right now.
How did Daquan Wright get so open on that 4th down too call, by the way? I mean, 4th down in the game on the line for, what a great play call by Kiffin and Charlie Weiss Jr. But I think the defense, it goes back to kind of with so many new faces, it's going to take some time for this group to sort of, asking them to replicate last year is probably difficult. Asking them to be better than Arkansas, that's doable. And so I think just given that the offense, LSU's got questions right now, but this group can only get better from here. And we'll find out more when they go on the road against Georgia and Oklahoma. But I don't feel like we necessarily see the fully formed Ole Miss team. Feels like they can get better on both sides of the ball, and with a favorable schedule. I think that's why you feel pretty good if you're Ole Miss going into this off week before you play Washington State.
Mm-hmm. And then, you know, obviously the big game here, Alabama goes into Georgia, dominates the Dogs. Kirby Smart is a son of Alabama, apparently, because Bama's his daddy. Surprise level, Stephen. You went with Georgia, as did many people. So it's no fault. But this was a neck and neck game. I think Kirby got out coached, and Kirby got tight. Kirby made some mistakes. What's your thoughts on this one?
2 Georgia games this season. We saw this with Tennessee, and we saw it with Alabama. Slow start for Georgia, but they figured it out as the game went on. The problem was they dug too big of a hole this time and weren't able to get out of it. And there's some things within this game that give me real concern for Georgia going forward. First of all, we can talk about the 4th down call. I understand tempo. I understand moving fast. I'm not sure Cass Jones would be my guy on 4th down. He's a very good receiver, little questionable uses of personnel. But the greater concern, Mike, has got to be the defense for me. Pass rush and secondary, they kind of go together. Both those are struggling right now. It's not the traditional Georgia defense that we're used to seeing. Now, credit to them for making the adjustments. Also, I think for Alabama, Mike, it's a good reminder almost that every week is its own season in this sport, because Alabama looked pretty much down and out after losing to Florida State, and they look a heck of a lot different since then. Things are weird in week 1 after a long off season. It's a good reminder that teams can get better from week 1 to 2 and from 2 to 5. And I think this is exactly the kind of victory that Kalen DeBoer really needed to kind of quiet some of the noise. Now, none of that matters if they lose to Vanderbilt this week, because we're having the same questions about consistency. But we wondered, they've struggled on the road, and they went and got it done this week against what I thought was maybe the best team in the SEC coming into last weekend. So Ty Simpson play great again. DeBoer and the staff deserve a ton of credit for getting this team rallied from week 1 to here and to go on the road and get this victory.
Mm-hmm. Any idea, Stephen, where I just looked it up while you were talking, Georgia ranks in the country when it comes to sacks? And I know they've had a bye, so I'm looking more at average instead of total. I know I'm putting you on the spot, but do you have any idea around where Georgia would rank in average sacks per game?
Isn't it like in the 100s, I think?
117th. They're averaging 1.25 sacks per game. And again, I'm just not used to seeing Georgia with that. I know they played 2 conference games, one on the road, but you would think that would be inflated, playing Austin Peay at home, playing Marshall at home. We got a real problem here in terms of pass rush. And I don't know. I keep asking everybody the same question, Stephen. Georgia's not done with. I think they could, if they win the SEC, I wouldn't even be the least bit surprised. So they're not buried and dead or anything. But at what point, Stephen, do we get nervous about where Georgia is as a program in terms of that championship mentality? And here's my favorite stat. I've said it on every show. You're the encyclopedia, so I'm sure you've already heard this one. But the last 7 Power 4 opponents, let's throw Notre Dame into this conversation, the last 7 that Georgia has played, do you know what their record is?
Hit me with it. I forget. It's not good, right?
4-3.
For 3, yeah.
And 3 of those wins came in overtime. So it's not like they're blowing anybody out, really. You know what I mean? So, again, that goes back to last season. That's a little unfair. But it's wild to go from they were the program of programs, should have won 3 straight national championships. That was not that long ago.
Here's another stat for you on pressure. I thought this was pretty interesting. So Sports Info Solutions kind of charts pressures, and pressures just maybe different from site to site. Georgia is 14th in the SEC just in pure quarterback pressures. They've also, by Sports Info Solutions, have 3 quarterback knockdowns this year. That seems really low for me for a Georgia defense. And you look at that schedule, Marshall, a completely revamped offense. Austin Peay is an FCS offense. Tennessee had a brand new offensive line. Alabama came into the game with question marks about its offensive line too. How it would be able to handle some of the pressure. I mean, Alabama's had some issues against Florida State in the opener. I think there's a real issue here. And I think maybe it goes back to just as simple as when I looked at their depth chart coming into the Alabama game, the thing I was reminded was I think there's like 2 seniors who are actually playing major snaps. and it's Ja'Cory Thomas and Dalen Everett. And maybe it's just as simple as when you lose guys to the portal like a Damon Wilson, Darius Smith, then you have to go to that next tier. And maybe these guys just aren't ready. And maybe in the old way of doing things, they would be cycling these guys in kind of as like the second teamers, and you would still have your other guys who didn't leave via the portal. It's also really hard to have a 100% hit rate all the time too. And so you may have to go through a year or two where you're not firing on all cylinders here for Georgia. So I think maybe if I'm looking at this as a Georgia fan, I would say we got a lot of room to improve. Got a lot of young talent. How far can it get down the road a season? You host Texas, you host Ole Miss. The schedule's pretty favorable. I could see them rebounding, but I could also see them, as you mentioned, in the championship sense. If they don't get these defensive issues fixed, we can pretty much pencil them in to be maybe one and done in the playoff or finishing 9-3. So I think this Georgia team is going to be really fascinating to watch over the next couple of weeks. There's a lot of room to get better, but also I think there's way more questions than we're used to seeing still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just pretty wild. And then Alabama's dead and buried a couple of weeks ago, Stephen, and now maybe the team to beat, but really, I don't even know who in the heck the team to beat is, because I think we're just in a new age here in the SEC, and it's only getting tougher with this 9-game schedule where it's every week or so maybe the front runner changes. Do you think that's fair?
I think that's 100% fair. I think if you ask me who the favorite is for the next 6 weeks, I might give you like 4 or 5 different answers. And we'll preview this, this weekend too. I mean, I'm interested to see Texas. Does the offense continue to look better off the Sam Houston game? I think Texas has been kind of quiet since that loss to Ohio State. Haven't seen a lot of Texas conversation. Like, they got a chance to change it this week. Georgia goes on the road to Auburn in a few weeks. What does Oklahoma look like once Meteor gets going again? So, I think there's a good chance 5 teams from the SEC are in the playoff this year. And I think there's probably a good chance that 5 to 7 of them are going to be mentioned as the front runner down the stretch, which makes for an unbelievable October and November, at least.
Hey, shout out Brandon Riley. He says he's late. His family made him a birthday dinner. Happy birthday,
Brandon.
Cousin Brandon. Thanks for joining us on your special day. All right, how about I just laugh every time I see this score, Stephen. A&M 16, Auburn, mighty Auburn 10, and really they only had 3 offensive points. So not making fun of you Auburn fans or Auburn players, really just the one man there. We all know who you are, you fraud, you failure, and it's coming to fruition in real time. Stephen, shout out to you, Freeze. I don't know what the excuse is this week, but buddy, what a train wreck this is.
Whew, Mike, you said it, excuses. Isn't Hugh Freeze kind of running out of excuses here? Year 3, didn't have the quarterback. Now you got another guy you've handpicked in Jackson Arnold. You've gone out and upgraded the receiving core. Offensive line's got upgrades. And they're like 3 of 28 on third downs in the last 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
Mike, not only that, I would say the score is a little misleading, don't you?
Completely. This game should have been put away in the third quarter.
Right. The 16-10 is not indicative of how much Texas A&M controlled this game. They outgained Auburn 414 to 177. And because Texas A&M didn't finish on drives and turnovers, it ended up a lot closer. So credit to Auburn's defense for kind of hanging in there in some really difficult circumstances. But this goes back to Hugh Freeze is an offensive guy. He's got all his pieces. It's year 3. There can't be any more excuses now. The run game has been completely invisible the last 2 weeks. I know they're running against good defenses, but they've got to figure something out, whether it's getting the run game going, getting Jackson Arnold more involved in the run game, getting rid of the ball quicker so that Jackson Arnold is not sacked, 5 to 6 times every week. For a guy that gets paid a lot of money because of his offensive background, they better figure it out real fast, or they're heading to 6-6 or maybe even worse.
Mm-hmm. And what about A&M? Where's the ceiling for them, do you think, with a team that it seems like they're improving each week? I know the offensive production in terms of scoring was not there this week, but I don't know, particularly on defense, the way they keep playing. we could say all the bad stuff about Auburn, and boy, do I enjoy doing it. But we also got to credit A&M's defense for making these plays too.
Absolutely. I think maybe that's the story of the season. When you talk about the Texas A&M victory over Notre Dame and you talk about this victory, like there's some differences there. Like they didn't have the most, I guess Marcel Reed didn't have the most prolific day, but 207 passing yards is pretty solid. But to me, the story is what they did on the line of scrimmage. I mean, getting after Jackson Arnold 5 times. They also held Auburn to 52 rushing yards. We wondered about line of scrimmage in the preseason. They've looked pretty good last week. Also, they held Eric Singleton and Cam Coleman in check for the most part. That Eric Singleton, or that one catch on the sideline was pretty nice. But I think the defense stepped up. After the offense led the way against Notre Dame, defense came through after the offense wasn't finishing drives. And I love the way they got back to running the ball, 207 yards as a team, Le'Veon Moss as well. I look at their schedule, Mike, and I see a pretty favorable path coming up. I mean, no easy games in the SEC, but Mississippi State, also look at Florida. They're both in College Station, Arkansas with an interim coach. I'd say the odds favor Texas A&M probably being undefeated going into that LSU game. Don't you think?
Yeah, I think that's very likely. Now, I think perhaps their stiffest game, though, could be this weekend because I'm very impressed with Mississippi State, and that's where I wanted to head next. Tough one for them, but they fought their ass off here, and Tennessee gave them everything they could handle. And you could certainly suggest Mississippi State deserved to win that football game. I just think Tennessee is obviously more talented. They've kind of been there before. And Tennessee was more tested after playing Georgia. And I think that showcased itself on Saturday. But major takeaway, Mississippi State, significantly more improved football team.
100%, Mike. I came away very impressed with Mississippi State in that game. Tennessee won the game, and certainly Tennessee's mistakes gave Mississippi State some short fields, which helped them punch around in this game. But I think just to think about how far Mississippi State has come since last season, to be that they're sitting here at 4-1, a top 30 to 35 team. They'd be 5-0 and ranked had a couple plays gone their way on Saturday against Tennessee. We'd be talking about a ranked Mississippi State team. I think that says a lot about how far Jeff Lebby and this program has improved. And I thought it was interesting. I think they asked Jeff Lebby, was it today or after the game, asking kind of like how happy he was with the performance. They were close, like, no, we lost. Like you kind of raised the standard there at Mississippi State that you're not just happy with 7-point losses in overtime to Tennessee. You're thinking much bigger than that. And I think you just have to be really encouraged if you're Mississippi State of how far the program has progressed and also maybe the vision too. We gave Coleman Hutzler a lot of grief last year. Their defense is a lot better this year. Love the way they ran the ball with Fluff Bothwell too on Saturday. And for Tennessee, I think just 2 games now in the SEC that, the Georgia game and the Mississippi State game have just been back-to-back, nonstop, 4-quarter battles. And for Tennessee in a tough road environment like Starkville to find a way to win when you didn't play your best, maybe when you struggled on the road too at times under Josh Heupel, to go in there and find a way to win also says a lot about Tennessee. So I think if you're both teams, you could come away feeling better, oddly enough, despite the outcome for Mississippi State.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a big one for Tennessee. I think, some tough breaks went against them. But when when your offense is, and they were making plays, but maybe not as many, and then your defense steps up and scoring touchdowns. I mean, that's what it takes sometimes to win. So getting in an 0-2 conference hole would have been perhaps insurmountable with the way this conference is shaking up. So that was a massive, massive win. They avoided the dreaded Josh Heupel egg on the road. Hopefully it doesn't come later. But this was shaping up. I certainly thought it was. And the one thing you didn't mention, Stephen, and I can't get over it. I won't let this go until we get this cleared up. But, man, what in the hell was Heupel doing at the end of the game with clock management? When you're making damn near $10 million, you cannot be brain dead in the final 90 seconds of a critical football game. The all fault goes to the head coach, and had they lost this game, it would have been devastating for him because it would have been his fault.
Yeah, was not sure what was going on there. I think there was a kind of an effort to almost basically make it the last possession of the game, so that Mississippi State didn't have one more crack at the ball. But it's almost like they were too casual trying to once they got to midfield, and the timeout usage was not great for Tennessee. It's amazing because I actually thought you were going with the other one, which was the offensive pass interference that was called for Tennessee.
Well, that was bad too.
Yeah, that was bad too. I thought that's where you were going in the officiating, but it's almost like epidemics in the SEC, officiating and coaches that don't know how to just manage the clock on a game-to-game basis. It's very puzzling. We continue to have these issues here.
But that's the thing, Stephen, that's out of your control.
Yeah.
Clock management, timeouts, that is solely in your control. And I don't care what the excuse was. That was laughably bad. And he's an elite coach. You know, there was no excuse for that.
You know, this might be something, if you're watching the game at home, like, those guys who are standing over there with like the notebooks and they're opened up and you see all those things. Those guys have like the down and distance and the clock, and they're like it's by analytics. They're trying to like give the coach the best situation. So it's always puzzling to me, like when you see something like that, and you're wondering what exactly is going on the sideline to make him go that advice, because somebody has to be saying it, in the games, like call timeout. Like, what are you,
Right.
it was very bad. Yes.
But you know what else was bad? According to Carl Junkins, the AP, you suck ass, he says, keep the balls at number 15, fourth straight week, and didn't rank Mississippi State. Shout out, Carl. We appreciate it. Thoughts on that, Stephen?
It's a little weird that Arizona State jumped in the rankings ahead of Mississippi State after they have the head-to-head win. It is a little hard. We're getting to the point where it's hard to maintain head-to-head integrity because we're getting more games and more results. I would probably have Tennessee maybe a few spots higher, to be honest with you. I like them ahead of Iowa State. Iowa State's 14th, Tennessee 15th. Georgia's 12. I don't know if I'd go any higher than that. They just played and Georgia won. I would say if Mississippi State's not a top 25 team, they're not much. They got to be top 30 at this point. So
yeah. Well,
go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
Oh, well, sorry to cut you off because I was just going to say who I would rank in the top 10, Stephen. Frederick Pearl, welcome. We appreciate you, buddy.
Welcome to the family.
Yeah, he became a member, as did Austin Wayne, gifted, Stephen, to Teddy G. That's Shane's code name. Teddy G, welcome to
the family.
Courtesy of Austin Wayne. We appreciate you, Austin. Here's another one that was flabbergasting here, Stephen. Shout out Cam. He gave us $5. Fluff. Late game situation. Anybody that didn't catch it, Mississippi State, this was after Tennessee scored, tied the game. Mississippi State got the ball. They had an opportunity to take it, and they had plenty of time. They could have kicked a field goal to win the game or a touchdown to win the game like they did against Arizona State. And they were dominating Tennessee on the ground. It's not like the clock was running out. And instead of running the ball with old Fluff, they threw it 3 times with 3 and out and gave Tennessee that opportunity to win the game that Josh Heupel screwed up. So both the coaches, I thought, kind of screwed up in that. Maybe they both got tight. I don't know.
Not the finest moment for management for Levy or Heupel probably at the end of that game. I think, not trying to excuse anything, I could definitely see how in a game where it was approaching the 30s and scoring over 30s, you're trying to have the ball the last time, last possession, last second. And so I could see how you're trying to maximize that opportunity. But to his point, the way that Mississippi State was running the ball, Tennessee was getting good pressure when in past situations, but Bothwell was running it well. And you almost wonder, Tennessee took the ball back, I think about a minute 23 left in the fourth quarter.
3 timeouts.
Yeah. Wouldn't you want to run the ball at least and take the clock down? And maybe you're playing for the last, possession. If nothing else, you make Tennessee use those. And that way, when they get the ball back, they don't have 3 timeouts at their disposal. And if anything else, it just goes into overtime like it did.
Well, I think Levy he knows Heupel. He's like, that bastard's not going to call timeouts. All right, hey, a final SEC game. I want to get your thoughts, Stephen. Of course, South Carolina gets off the mat, beats Kentucky. Huge win for the Gamecocks. Season would have been in the toilet if they had not gotten this one. Kentucky, you might already be there. So what was your thoughts on this one, Stephen?
Mike, I think my first thought was when I was watching that game on Saturday night and it was 10-7 at the end of the first quarter, I was like, oh no, Kentucky's dragging South Carolina into the game that it needs. But credit for South Carolina for getting those 21 points in the second quarter, scores again on defense, helping out. So I think in a sense, on the most basic level, South Carolina really needed this game. After back-to-back losses, get on the right side in the SEC. You can kind of start to get into that second half of the schedule. And also, I thought it was important because the last 2 weeks, did we see Lenore Sellers start to turn a corner a little bit? I mean, 11 of 14, 153 yards, 81 on the ground Saturday. I thought the last 2 weeks looked a lot like the Lenore Sellers we would see in the preseason. Is that crazy?
No, not at all. But he's still not getting much help on the offensive line.
Yeah,
he's leaded the team in rushing, which he is very dynamic. So, but I don't want him to necessarily do that week in and week out, particularly in this conference with some of the defenders that are going to be coming after him. But no, to your point, I think Carolina, and it's this is kind of Captain Obvious at this point, but they're going to go as far as Sellers can take them. And when he's clicking, I don't believe there's a more talented quarterback in this conference. So it's not the worst position to be in, but how far can you go with him? I don't know. He got red hot last season, so maybe we can get there again. They got 2 weeks to prepare for LSU on the road, which is kind of banged up right now. Oklahoma, which we don't know John Mateer. And then Alabama, and then Ole Miss, good night, and then A&M. So it's not easy, but heck, it wasn't easy last year, Stephen, and they did it. You know what?
5 straight games against ranked opponents coming up for South Carolina. Man, that's got to be one of the most brutal stretches in the country coming up. I think it just, I would kind of echo what you're saying, which is, I think about that schedule, and I think about Sellers, and I'm sitting here thinking, Sellers is good enough to carry them to victories in all of those games. But I'm talking like Herculean, Superman, Lenore Sellers type performances. And the last 2 weeks have been better, but there's another level that we're talking about here. So you have to get that, or you have to get more out of the supporting cast. And, they ran for 178 yards. We saw some good things out of Faison with the 2 touchdowns. Matt Fuller had 48 yards. I mean, there were some signs maybe that the supporting cast was better this week, but it's also Kentucky. So it's hard for me to read too much into that. I need to see it against LSU or Oklahoma to kind of believe it. But that kind of is the debate here for South Carolina. Is Sellers is good enough to take them pretty far? I still think they're going to need the other pieces to step up, and maybe the bye week, and maybe as we get into the second half of the season, they can kind of fill in some of these gaps around him.
Mm-hmm. And any other thoughts on the week that was in the SEC before we get into some Arkansas discussion?
Mike, I think Missouri was, I know it's UMass. Missouri was very impressive once again. Also, Vanderbilt taking care of business after, maybe a little bit of a sluggish start there against Utah State. Kind of funny to think about Vanderbilt getting a 20-point victory and walking away with things to be disappointed about, right? I mean, how many times can you say that if you're Vanderbilt over the last 15 to 20 years of football? So it was great to see those teams take care of business and set up big time showdowns, oddly enough, against Alabama for both in the coming weeks.
I believe a wise man once said, Stephen, the times they are a-changing. And that's what it's like for old Vanderbilt down there. But, Stephen, you know how the cousins can change out there? By checking out PonchoOutdoors.com/SEC. Get $10 off your order over at PonchoOutdoors/SEC. Don't forget that, most importantly, Stephen. So, what is this? This is some fine wear. They sent Shane and I some gear. Shane's loving it. I'm loving it. They got denim. They got flannel. They got Western polos. They got tough thread, comfortable, durable, versatile for your needs, Stephen. The toughest fabric yet, reinforced with ring stop. Go check them out. PonchoOutdoors.com/SEC. You got to do it just like that to get you $10 off. Here it is there at the bottom. There's also a link in the show notes. This is an Austin-based business, so we support the SEC businesses. Go check them out. Poncho Outdoors. And here's one last thing, Stephen. Free shipping, free returns, free exchanges. Poncho stands by every shirt they make. So if you want to update your wardrobe, go check them out. PonchoOutdoors.com/SEC.
Mike, if I was a fired head coach in college football and I needed to update my wardrobe so it's not all a specific color, would Poncho Outdoors have what I need?
You know it, buddy. Go check them out. I mean, they get the website is pretty phenomenal, if I do say so myself.
I think we may have, let's see, we've got 5 head coach openings in college football right now. I think we'll have some more, maybe especially in the SEC. So I checked out their website a few weeks ago, man. They got some great stuff.
Emily says, can I have a free coach exchange? I wish. And we ain't going to exchange J. Landon Messaw. Hope I didn't mess that up. Landon, welcome to
the family.
Yeah, we appreciate you, buddy. Well, speaking of a free coach exchange, Stephen, that's what we're getting with them hoes. Shout out Sam Pittman. You will be missed. There's just not going to be anyone quite like you. But, man, what thoughts on that, Stephen? I mean, I think it was past time, personally. Thoughts on the decision and thoughts on where Arkansas goes from here.
You know, the one common thing that we've seen in the coaching changes this year with Virginia Tech, UCLA, and Oklahoma State, and now Arkansas, is that when a team bottoms out, it's probably time to change your coach. And there's a lot more consideration to it than before with the portal, trying to manage the roster. But I think there is an element of, can you find a way to spark your team by changing head coaches? And there's always do you have an interim? Do you have a guy? Well, Arkansas has a guy, which is going to make for an interesting kind of ride here the next couple of weeks. I think, to look at Pittman's tenure as a whole, I actually think he deserves a lot of credit. And you guys can call me crazy on this one, but this program was a disaster when Chad Morris left. I mean, they were getting, beat by Western Kentucky pretty bad. And Pittman at least restored respectability. They had the 9-win season. They got some preseason top 25 consideration in there. It's been hard with all the portal leavings, comings and goings to manage it. I know the final result is a firing. That's where most coaches end up now. I actually think that Pittman acquitted himself well as a head coach, given what he inherited, where it took him to. And now I think he took it as far as he could. And now it's the challenge for Arkansas is to find somebody who can elevate this program into playoff contention. And I say playoff because if Texas Tech, Indiana, Ole Miss can all be playoff contenders, Arkansas should be able to in the 12-team playoff era. Is that crazy at all?
No, not at all. And we had on Crazy Marler today, and he tried to pitch me that SMU's better. And I said, SM who? I mean, I get it. Yeah, apparently they got billions of dollars. It hadn't helped them yet. So, and they're in a conference that could implode in 12 months' time. So that's nonsensory. I heard the same things, and I know I've realized Tennessee is a little different, but I heard the same thing, Stephen. Don't touch the Tennessee job. You had guys like Joe Cladd out here saying that who don't take the job. I feel bad for anybody that coaches at Tennessee because those fans are horrible people, and you'll never win there. Well, incorrect. That guy's an idiot. You can do big things at all these damn schools. Missouri, a lot of people thought that, that's like a laughing stock in this conference. They're one of the winningest programs not in the conference in the country. Same thing, Ole Miss. You can accomplish great things here, and it just takes alignment, takes a right coach, and takes a little luck, no doubt. But at Arkansas, they have literally everything you need to be a big-time winner. I truly believe that.
People care. I think that matters. And I think that matters in the SEC for the, pretty much everywhere. People care about winning. They want to win. They're willing to invest. And I think Arkansas, it's going to be important to, number one, pay your coach, the assistants, support staff, also NIL dollars more than ever. You mentioned that Tennessee quote. It's just mind-boggling to think that a job that has 100,000 fans willing to pack Neyland Stadium for an FCS opponent is a terrible job. Arkansas may be like a fringe top 25-ish job in college football. That's still, like I said, Indiana made the playoff. Indiana invested in its coaching staff and NIL last year, and it elevated it from being one of the worst Big Ten teams to a playoff team. Arkansas can do this in the SEC, and they can do this nationally. We've seen it before. They've played in BCS bowl games when they had Petrino, making, forget the Sugar Bowl, and of course they've played in the Cotton Bowl before. They can do this. It's just going to require the right investment, and it's going to require alignment from board, AD, coach on down. You mentioned Rhett Lashley. I think Arkansas is a better job than SMU. I do think that he might be convinced to stay at SMU. And I think the reasoning is the ACC is just easier to win at right now. They also have a good thing going. They just made the playoff last year. They have a lot of money too. They basically, people self-funded their path to the ACC. They're not taking any TV money from the ACC. So they got a lot of people willing to, bad pun, but pony up to keep him there. So I think Lashley ought to be a candidate because I think there's probably maybe a little bit more upward mobility going to the SEC and having that security. I could also see him getting paid quite a bit to stick around and be at SMU. Now, that being said, I still think Arkansas's got a lot of great candidates here.
Like Hugh Freeze, says Lucio. If Auburn gets his ass to the curb. So who are some realistic candidates that you think would be good hires for the Razorbacks?
Can we discuss Gus Malzahn for a second here? I don't think he's a candidate. Do you?
No, that'd be a hard pass, I think.
I think that time was like 7 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Also, he resigned from UCF to be the offensive coordinator of Florida State. I think it was pretty clear that he was like burned out of being a head coach.
Right.
I don't know if you want that guy. I know his name's going to come up because of the connections. Let me ask you about one name in particular that I would have on the top of my list. Maybe not number one. What about Dan Mullen?
Ooh, I was hoping you'd go there, Stephen. Yeah, I think he's a really good coach. And I think he would do well because I don't know. I really do. Especially the way the sport is changing with NIL and the portal. He's active in the portal, no doubt. And hey, he's made it no secret. He's not the best recruiter. And that was a huge strike against him at Florida. But I don't know that you really have to be in the NIL era. I think he'll need some really good recruiters, and he'll need a good defensive coordinator, but he seems to have a really good eye for hiring those guys anyway. So I'm not a huge fan of SEC retreads, I'll just be honest with you, but if they hire Dan Mullen, they could do a hell of a lot worse than Dan Mullen, I think.
I think you're spot on with the recruiting thing, and that's why he would be appealing to me, is that Arkansas is pretty heavy in the portal, and you got a coach in Mullen who I know he ended his firing at Florida. It's really hard to win at Mississippi State, though, and he kept churning out winning teams, and he's doing it to a UNLV team that's got 60, 70 new players on it. So he could almost live in the portal for a good chunk of that. Also, I think he knows how to maximize talent, and they're not going to be boring on offense. That is for sure. So I like Mullen at the close to the top of that list. I think there's a lot of really good G5 coaches that deserve consideration here. I think John Sumrall is going to be at the top of everybody's list, whether that's Arkansas, Virginia Tech, any others that open up. I'm not convinced that he leaves for these jobs. I think he may be waiting to see what happens with some of the others out there. I think G.J. Kinney is a name to watch. He's a head coach at Texas State, extensive ties to the state of Texas. Also a guy that lives in the portal, very much offensive-driven coach. Eric Morris from North Texas, same thing. He's somebody who was recruiting John Mateer. Cam Ward was the number one pick. The guy knows offenses and quarterbacks. And I'll throw out two more, Mike. I think Alex Golish ought to be very high on Arkansas's list. And Jeff Traylor, the head coach at UTSA, former Arkansas assistant, very successful in the high school ranks in the state of Texas, would be very tied into a key recruiting area for Arkansas. Those are kind of the 6 or so names that I'm kind of floating around in my head. Petrino is interesting for the storylines. I don't know that I would necessarily do that if I'm Arkansas. I think they could probably hire Alex Golish or Dan Mullen, and they'd probably be very successful at it.
Yeah, and I think you and Ashley Schaefer might be onto something. Golish with this offense. Heupel, Levy, Kiffin, they all run something similar. So can we have too many of these in the SEC? I say not. Let's just throw them all in there. But it's an exciting brand of football. It's a fun brand of football. I wouldn't mind that either. Migrating Coconut says Arkansas can get Mike Bobo.
I think the Arkansas fans might, I don't know, Razorback Stadium might not be standing if they hired Mike Bobo. Is that fair to say?
I think so. But here's the one thing that I hope, and again, big Sam Pittman fan. Hell, the Hunter Yurchek, and he seems like a dumbass anyway. But he came out today and said, "Hey, I don't think Sam Pittman had all the support to be successful here," which is pretty bad because hell, it's your job to go get it for him. But if the support is there, I think Arkansas can get damn near anybody they want. Right? Not Nick Saban, obviously. But I'm talking about of actual candidates. I think they can get a big time coach. Doesn't have to be a big name, but a big time coach. I think they can, but they've got to get those resources. Otherwise, if the resources are not there, that's kind of how you got Sam Pittman. Because again, we credit Sam Pittman, but hiring an offensive line coach to be your head coach was kind of a joke at the time. Sam Pittman did a hell of a lot better than people thought he would. But I think Arkansas fans are going to demand a lot better than a position coach.
Yeah, isn't it the right time to have like the alignment discussion at Arkansas, or to at least make sure that A, B, and C are all moving in the same direction?
Mm-hmm.
Because like I said, you could look around and see, man, Texas Tech got its act together, and look what they're doing in the Big 12, Indiana, Ole Miss, Vanderbilt, Missouri. I mean, if I'm Arkansas and I'm looking at that going, man, if they can do it, we got to do it. And I know that there's money in that state to be able to go into NIL and coaching and to get who they want. And I think it's a good job. I mean, like I said, look at the fan support that Arkansas has. I mean, they have a passionate fan base that wants to win. Maybe contending for the national championship is out of the question, but as far as being a winner and being a playoff contender, absolutely. That's what the resources should be there and are there in the SEC to do so.
Mm-hmm. All right, Stephen, we're going to have a lot of time to talk about Arkansas and the candidates and things of that nature, but I'm curious to know where you went with the September awards in the SEC. So just to be clear, it's September 29th as we're recording this, so there's no more games in September, right? So kind of we're giving out awards to who had the best first month of the season, if that makes sense. We're not kind of projecting out to say this guy's going to win MVP or Offensive Player of the Year by the end of the season. We're saying if for some reason they handed out the awards today, who would get them? Does that make sense, Stephen?
It does. Yeah, Mike, this was hard, wasn't it? There's been a lot of great individual performances on all across the board, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, no, there is. So we're going to hand out a couple, and I'm curious to see where you went, Stephen. So first, who is the MVP, most valuable player of the SEC in September? Who'd you go with here?
Mike, I didn't go with the doctor. I went with John Mateer. By the way, shout out to the Oklahoma fans for all the wonderful memes about the doctor last week during surgery. I had to go John Mateer because I think his impact just on the offense and the team overall. Oklahoma is a playoff contender. They're an SEC championship contender because the offense is better with John Mateer.
Yeah, that's 100%, Stephen. And Stephen and I did not share each other's lists prior to this either, just to be clear. But that's exactly where I went. Oklahoma has turned into a contender, a national contender, an SEC contender, of course, thanks to John Mateer. And he's not doing it all himself. I don't want to make it out like he's a superhero here, but they've got belief in Norman that they didn't have last year. I think, and this is kind of cruel to sit here and say, Stephen, but if you remove a player, who are you most negatively? Who would that negatively hurt the most? I think it's John Mateer. We're gonna find out on Saturday. Probably not because it's Kent State, but that was the one guy you simply could not lose to win at a high level, in my opinion. I hope I'm wrong, and I hope he's back. But this was an easy answer for me. John Mateer, MVP the first month of the season.
Was there anybody else you considered?
No.
I didn't either. Yeah.
All right. How about offensive player of the year? Is it the same?
I actually went different just to spread the wealth a little bit. I'm going to give it to Diego Pavia.
Oh, I like that.
5-0, second in the SEC in yards per play, 8.7 yards per play. Obviously, he's instrumental into the 5-0 start. I think Vanderbilt's a much better team overall than they were last season, but it's hard to also deny the importance of Pavia to that team. You look at his numbers too, averaging over 300 total yards per game, 75% completion rate to me. I had to spread the wealth a little bit, so I wanted to go with Diego Pavia, offensive player of September.
Yeah, not a bad selection at all, Stephen. This won't be popular, but I think it's the truth. I don't care what you say. I don't care what you say, Stephen. Give me Taylon Green. It's not his fault that the defense is god-awful and can't stop Notre Dame. Literally cannot stop him on a single possession. He didn't have a great game against Notre Dame, but, I think the whole program imploded on Saturday. Up until that point in time, Taylon Green, my Lord, Stephen, he's number 3 in rushing in the conference. He's a quarterback. He's just playing his guts out there. If you want to talk about one player that is just simply dynamic in the Southeastern Conference, and people are not going to be paying attention much anymore because I think they're going to, I don't even know if he's still on the team, Stephen, after today. I don't know. But up until we're not doing the end of the season. We're doing the first month, and even in the losses, he has been dynamic. Give me Taylon Green. I think he's the most outstanding individual offensive threat in the conference.
I like that pick. The only reason why I didn't go with him was the performance on Saturday against Notre Dame. Just, 207 passing yards. The statistical stuff wasn't there. And of course the team got blown out. So I think had he had a better game, I know it's not his fault. I think had he had a bit more of a statistical impact in the game, I probably would have gone Green over Pavia.
All right. How about now this was a challenge for me. Defensive player of the year.
I had a hard time with this one. There hasn't been one clear defensive standout, so I'm going to go with Mansour Delaney at LSU. He has been targeted 20 times by opposing offenses. He has allowed just 6 completions this season, intercepted 1 pass. A little different to go with a corner here, but I think was one of the most hyped transfer additions for LSU, and he's lived up to that so far.
Yeah, I considered him, Stephen. I think that's an outstanding selection. But I'm going to go Tennessee linebacker Arion Carter. Leads the SEC in tackles. Hell, he had 17 tackles last game against Mississippi State. He's got a sack. He's tied for second among Power 4 players in tackles. So, like I said, this is a tough one. There's not any dominant sack artists. There's not a lot of interceptions. A lot of candidates here. Whit Weeks is another one who got, his numbers would be even better if he didn't get thrown out of that Florida game. I think you could make a case for him. But give me Arion Carter, Tennessee. I know the defense is not as dominant as last year. I think that's more the secondary. I think Arion Carter's having an All-American type year for Tennessee.
Yeah, I like that call, Mike. And I was going to say when we talked about the Tennessee Mississippi State game, it also I think speaks well for Tennessee to navigate some of these close games without two starters at corner. And Colton Hood has been outstanding, but you're missing two guys who could be difference makers. So Tennessee's defense has got some room to grow when those guys get back. I also thought about Dylan Stewart too, because he was excellent on Saturday against Kentucky. He's up to 6.5 tackles for a loss. So I think Dylan Stewart's kind of finding his midseason groove here as the season goes on for South Carolina.
Right, and this could change weekly based on who is facing Auburn's left tackle. He's going to make some people some money this year, so shout out that young man. How about Coach of the Year, Stephen? I had a name written down. I marked it off and put it in another. I mean, this is this close to me. Who do you think is SEC Coach of the Year?
Mike, I think I had 5 names in consideration here. Let's go with the Lane train, Mike.
Ooh.
Ole Miss is 5-0 after bringing in all those new faces this offseason. Maybe it's because of recency bias on my part here with the big win over LSU, but this team is in the mix to be the top SEC team. They're in the mix to be one of the top teams in the playoff rankings potentially. So it's tough to leave off any of the other guys, but I got to go Lane Kiffin here.
Yeah, well, here's the guy I had originally, Stephen. Clark Lee.
Yeah.
Shout out Vanderbilt Commodores. I think he's doing an excellent job, and he leads the SEC in coach effect right now with a +2. So he's really doing a great job. But you nailed it, Stephen. I went with Lane Kiffin because, again, I didn't think this team would be any better than 8-4 this year, given all the pieces they lost. They've lost their quarterback, and heck, they upgraded somehow. So a masterful coaching job. You know, it's not just the head coach; it's their assistants and coordinators and things of that nature too. So just the whole operation there at Ole Miss is doing a heck of a job right now. If they gave it out, I think my vote would be for Lane Kiffin to be SEC Coach of the Year.
I think Clark Lee's got a really strong case too. Also think Mike Elko, the big win at Notre Dame, Brent Venables, the greats, 2 great wins over Auburn and Michigan. I also think Drinkowitz, 2 at Missouri, just kind of quietly plugging along at 5-0. Maybe they haven't had like the national stage, kind of like we saw A&M and Notre Dame, but their time's coming. And I think Drinkowitz could be one of these coaches we're talking about in October that could be on the top step if they keep winning.
A lot of the cousins are saying Jeff Lebby, he's doing a good job.
Yeah.
He would be in consideration, but his best win of the year is a loss. Okay, how about quarterback, Steve? Who's the best quarterback?
Got to go John Mateer. I think just kind of the same thing on the MVP line. The impact that he's had on this Oklahoma offense, whether it's the rushing, the passing, leadership, all of that, he and Ben Arbuckle have completely changed this Oklahoma offense. So I had to go John Mateer.
Give me Archman. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I agree. But remember something key you said here, Stephen. You wanted to spread the wealth a little bit. So I'm spreading the wealth. Best pure passer, I think, in the SEC. Of course, he did just have multiple interceptions. But give me Joey Aguilar. Joey Swagular, Stephen. He's come out of nowhere. I didn't think he'd be any good. He's been a revelation for Tennessee. Leads the SEC in passing. Would I rather have, Taylor Green or John Mateer? Yeah, probably. But I'm just saying pure pocket passer. Give me Joey Aguilar. I don't know that there's a better passer of the football in the Southeastern Conference after the first month of the season.
When you said would I rather have, and I thought you were going Nico, and I was like, that's a really strange place for Mike to go. I mean, isn't the credit to Aguilar to be able to go from App State playing in the Sun Belt to go to the Big Ten and UCLA and spend a spring there and come in the summer and get acclimated to Tennessee's offense and basically no pressure, no anything. He's starting quarterback, Syracuse, Georgia, on the road at Mississippi State, not phased a bit. I think that speaks very highly of his talent and ability to get acclimated to this offense.
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea how he's doing it, but shout out Josh Heupel. All right, best running back in the SEC after the first month.
This was the easiest one, wasn't it? That's Ahmad Hardy, 731 rushing yards. Mike, 544 of that have come after contact. He's also forced 48 missed tackles. Pro Football Focus. Slam dunk, Ahmad Hardy.
Yeah, no, this was easy. I almost didn't even send it to you because I was like, But we got to give the Missouri fans something because they're in the damn comments. We didn't give this guy MVP, Heisman, number 1 draft pick. So far and away, best running back in the SEC, and I'd say the country.
Mike, can I throw out a little nugget outside the SEC?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Penn State fans might have wanted to keep Bo Prabula over Drew Aller after Saturday's game?
Did he have a rough one? I mean, I didn't watch a lick of it, but yeah, I mean, given what Bo Prabula, now that we know what he is, it's hard to imagine they had a quarterback better than him on the roster.
I mean, Penn State's offense, and I think that their receivers were a big concern last year. They're much better. Threw for 137 yards and 2 touchdowns against Oregon. Now, Oregon's pretty good defense, but they were just absolutely terrified to throw the ball more than 5 yards down the field until the game was in question.
Hugh Freeze calling plays for them too, I guess, huh?
Must be. James Franklin hired. I wonder what's wrong with this offense.
All right, so who's been the best receiver after the first month of the season?
I'm going Mario Craver, Mike. And some of this is what the Notre Dame game, 200 yards, the unbelievable play down the sidelines with the spin move, leads the SEC in receiving yards per game. So give me Mario Craver.
I'm not even sure he's the best receiver on his team, Stephen, but that's more of a compliment to Casey Concepcion. So yeah, honestly, I got no problem with Mario Craver being that guy. He has been dynamic as well, but give me some Brazzle Dazzle, Stephen. Come on, Chris Brazzle. I mean, my goodness, this is like the closest I've seen to Randy Moss since his days in Marshall down there. You know what I mean? Yeah. He may not be that good, but I mean, he's pretty dang good. And I don't know, 50-50 balls, throw it up to Brazzle and let him come down with it. I don't even want to mention the former quarterback's name, Stephen, but Tennessee may have had 2 years of this, but we just didn't know it because the quarterback couldn't get it to him. I don't know, but something's clicked with old Chris Brazzle, and I don't know that he can be stopped.
I mean, you have a pretty strong case considering he torched Georgia for 177 yards and 3 touchdowns, and of course had over 100 yards against Mississippi State. Maybe the most encouraging thing for him too is Mike Matthews getting going too, to some extent against Mississippi State. And so you had defense has got to pay attention to him, and they still got to deal with Brazzle. That could only mean good things for Brazzle in the second half of the season. Yeah,
I mean, he's just so dynamic, Stephen, that I mean, it literally he gets flagged for making catches because it's just like, well, that can't be legal what he's doing, but it was. Well, you know, they took 50 yards away from him. You know what?
They did. Man, that was a terrible call. We got to do something about this. Mike, this is a kind of a pet peeve of mine when it comes to like officiating. We can get better officials in this conference. We got to, I mean, this is the highest level of college ball. I know officials are human, but man, come on. We've got to be better than this.
All right, final kind of award we were going to hand out here, Stephen. SEC championship winner and the runner-up. Who do you think? And we won't hold you to it, but just after the first month, who would you have there?
I wrestled with this a lot, and I actually am going to go Ole Miss over Georgia. I think Georgia's going to rebound. I'm going to take Ole Miss. Maybe it's because I'm just sensing what happened on Saturday. I'm also looking at the path and seeing a pretty favorable path. I also considered Alabama and Texas. There's probably some in there that I'm missing, but
I think it's that arch bias that you're missing. But how about this, Stephen? Would it surprise you? Again, you said Georgia, Ole Miss. I don't have either one of those teams. So I got Alabama. It's my preseason pick to win it.
Alabama bias again.
Alabama, but I have Alabama as the runner-up.
Oh.
To A&M. How about that, buddy? A&M winning the Southeastern Conference this year. I think I'm liking what I'm seeing from the defense. I need to see a little bit more out of Marcel Reed. He's a little, particularly down the field, pushing the ball down the field. It's got to be a bit more accurate. But they got Le'Veon Moss running. I think we're just scratching the surface of what A&M could be.
I probably should have given Texas A&M more consideration. I didn't mention them: Alabama, Texas A&M. I do think, looking at their schedule of the games against LSU, Missouri, and Texas, do kind of
Easy.
easy dubs. It is, Mike. It is interesting to think about the role that Missouri is going to play in this too.
Yeah.
Because hosting Alabama, I think their road schedule at Auburn, at Vanderbilt, Oklahoma, Arkansas could be tricky.
Yeah.
But you're talking about getting Alabama and Texas A&M at your place.
Mm-hmm.
This Missouri team is going to have a lot to say one way or the other. If they could be in it or they could factor into it because of their schedule.
Oh yeah, no doubt. So again, I'm kind of tipping my hand there. I picked Bama and A&M. Those are two of the teams Missouri's got to play. But if they beat just one of them, they may be in there. That is certainly a possibility. And then, but what really hinges on this whole thing, Stephen, I haven't forgot about him, but hopefully John Mateer can get back here because they can get into the mix. But even if he was 100% and never had the injury, I don't know if I would put him in there just because of the gauntlet they're facing. But they got a shot. I need to see. It's just too big of an unknown when he comes back. If he's back, if you can guarantee me he's back by October 18th and he's good, I'm probably throwing Oklahoma in there.
Yeah, I don't want to forget about Oklahoma either. They're just so hard to get a read on right now with Mateer's status. If Mateer was 100%, I would probably give him a little bit more consideration here. But that schedule is hard, and I think that's been one thing that's just given me a little bit of pause. What's your confidence level in Alabama? I mean, I know you liked him as runner-up there. Did that go up quite a bit after the win on Saturday?
Yeah, but again, big game to boring. I mean, how many more of these are defined as big games to him? Because I don't know. I mean, again, he's going to lose to an unranked, so he's probably going to lose to Carolina. But yeah, I mean, if he can get his big game up for Vandy, Mizzou, Tennessee, LSU, Oklahoma, I mean, this ain't gonna be easy either, Stephen. And there's still flaws in old Alabama. They did score in the second half against Georgia, so I'm not crowning them, but it's kind of hard to deny them how they've looked the last 3 games. You know what?
Agree with you. And I think what it's setting up and what it sounds like is you're telling me that Alabama's going to go into the last week of the year on a winning streak. And there's Hugh Freeze sitting there with a chance to save his job, and he's going to beat Alabama. Is that what I'm hearing?
I think that's exactly what I'm saying. Oh, hey, shout out. I missed this one. So sorry, Carl. This was a while ago. So, Stephen, you got Oklahoma beating Tennessee and Neyland?
I did in the preseason.
Okay.
But ask me in a few weeks when Mateer gets back. Right now, you'd have to take Oklahoma just because we don't know if Mateer is going to be playing in that game.
Right. Or you mean Tennessee, right?
Yes. Sorry, Tennessee. Yes, I would pick Tennessee if you asked me to make a pick now,
Right.
because we don't know about Mateer. Also, I would say I thought it was close to a 50-50 game in the preseason. I think it's still that way right now too.
What a showdown of quarterbacks, Mateer, Aguilar.
It's
winner gets the Heisman. Come on.
Forget about Arch and DJ Lagway.
All right. Hey, what about for the first time, Stephen? You did this weekly last year. Now that we're kind of a month in here, you got some bowl projections for us. And I don't envy the position I've put you in. The Cousins are not going to be happy, but I'd love to hear some playoff projections for the SEC as well.
So I think you want to hit the playoff teams first. I got 5 SEC teams in there. So I'll start with the caveat. I did not pick Oklahoma to make the playoff right now because I just don't know what Mateer's status is. They were the easiest team. When I had 6 on the board, they were the easiest one to move to the out pile for right now.
You've always hated this. Steven's got a Lincoln Riley tattoo. Don't let him fool you.
Right. I have a Oklahoma roll of like duct tape that I got like some kind of random place. So it's like, actually, I probably should bring it here next time and show it to you guys. So that's like totally random, I know. Playoff teams in the SEC. I got Ole Miss making the playoff and getting a bye week as the projected SEC champion after week 5. So they would be the number 4 seed. Alabama at the number 5 seed playing South Florida in the first round. Georgia at 6 playing Penn State in a first round game. I've got Texas at 7 playing Indiana in a first round game, and Texas A&M playing old Big 12 friend Texas Tech in a first round matchup.
Man, that'd be fun. You know what?
Bring the tortillas to Kyle Field. That would be an epic playoff game if we can get that.
Okay, so all people heard from you, Stephen, is you hate LSU, you hate Tennessee, you hate Vanderbilt, Missouri, and Oklahoma, of course.
Yeah, man, this is the theme of the season, isn't it? Like this middle of the SEC was a question in the preseason. It's still a question now. It's like there's so many good teams, and I feel bad for leaving out like Missouri and Oklahoma and all them. But Mike, I think 5 teams in the SEC, I would say I feel good about getting in. Which 5? I don't have a lot of confidence in that order. I think that's pretty fair to say.
You're right, and this week's slate is probably a bad example of this. I'll throw it up here for anybody that's not familiar, just because we got 4 games. One's a non-conference, and 5 games. One's a non-conference, and 4 of them feature a double-digit point spreads. But in any normal, like a last week and the weeks to come, I mean, week by week, this is going to change drastically potentially.
Yeah, I consider playoff projections and bowl projections as almost like a snapshot in time. Like they're not meant to be predictive. Like when we get to November, I sort of get more predictive, but now we're kind of just going with what we know. Think about it like as you're taking a picture of like what it looks like outside now. That's supposed to be the way.
I hear you. So where does that leave the other teams in the bowl discussion?
Sorry, I was laughing at that Lincoln Riley comment there. That was good, by the way. Let's start with Auburn. I've got them coming to Nashville to play Minnesota in the Music City Bowl.
Hugh, I got a spare bedroom if you need it, brother.
Right. I got LSU playing Florida State in the Gator Bowl.
Oh, Brian Kelly ain't going to like that.
Right. Nightmares of seeing Florida State, but they're at the end of the year this time, so a little different. I've got Mississippi State in the Birmingham Bowl playing NC State. Mississippi State making a bowl game. Be a good season.
Yeah.
I've got Missouri squaring off against TCU in the Texas Bowl. This is my favorite one, though. The ReliaQuest Bowl. Give me Oklahoma playing Nebraska.
Ooh,
old
man.
Rivals getting back together. That'd be fantastic.
I'd love that. Yeah, I mean, those used to be blood rivals.
Oh, yeah, man. Old Big 12, Big 8 rivalries, man. Let's get that game on the schedule pretty regularly going forward. I've got South Carolina in the Liberty Bowl against Baylor. I've got Tennessee, Mike, in the Citrus Bowl playing Michigan.
Can't spell citrus without UT, apparently.
Man, think about that one, though. Bryce Underwood, Joey Aguilar. That could be fun.
Yeah, that should be a fun 2-touchdown win for the Vols.
Right. I'm going to go for the last team on here, but certainly not the least team. Vanderbilt going to the Duke's Mayo Bowl to play Mike's favorite coach, Dabo Swinney and Clemson.
Man, to get the dump of the mayo on old Clark Lee, I'd say he'd take that.
I think he would. If you win the Mayo Bowl, that's a pretty solid bowl game in the pecking order, and you get dunked by Mayo, Clark Lee would take it. Now, I would say I am rooting for North Carolina to get here, so that way we could see Bill Belichick get all that mayonnaise knocked out of him. But Clemson and Dabo Swinney be pretty funny.
No shot he signs up for that, does he?
He might quit before the bowl game.
Jeez. All right. How about Panic Meter this week, Steven? Are you panicked about anybody in the SEC after the first month?
Oh, yes, Mike. I am panicked after some things that I saw on Saturday. And I think we should start with Auburn, because here we are. 2 SEC games down. Auburn's 0-2. You look at this offense, 10 points against Texas A&M. We mentioned the struggles on third down. I think this week's a good week, as kind of the Hugh Freeze seems to indicate that going to go back to the drawing board and figure out what needs to work better going forward. But Mike, we talked about this, and Hugh Freeze is an offensive guy. By now you have your personnel in place, and the fact that we're sitting here going, what exactly is Auburn's identity? And you've got question marks about the offensive line after your high price portal additions. What do you do with Jackson Arnold? He's kind of been struggling too. I'm setting the panic meter at 8 because I'm starting to get worried about this team potentially only finishing 6-6. And if things go really wrong, missing out on a bowl game.
Yeah, I'm worried they got our hopes up when that Baylor game, Stephen. I think that's what really happened. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know if 8's high enough. But, maybe just A&M's really, really good on defense. I know Oklahoma's very good on defense. And Georgia. Georgia's not as good on defense, believe it or not. Missouri's got some issues in the secondary. Oh, Arkansas is just awful. So, yeah, I mean, this ain't going to be easy, Stephen. I literally think the man's job's on the line here the next couple of weeks. But, if you just look at the games on paper, you're like, oh, buddy, good luck. But maybe in a roundabout way, if you squint, if you really know what you're looking at, Georgia's not the worst opponent to get. And they already announced it's going to be a night game. Missouri be coming off a do or die against Alabama. Well, not do or die, but, huge game that they faced a couple of these last year, Stephen, and they got egg on their face. I'm not saying it happens again, but if it does, then we're sitting here saying, hey, I like your spot for old Auburn. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, I mean, those are the silver linings I could come with, because other than that, you had 72 yards in the second half against the Southeastern Conference team. You had 27 yards in the first quarter against A&M. So, yeah, it's a travesty right now, but it's kind of par for the course with old Hugh. Messes seem to follow that, man.
The only reason it's not a 10 is I do think Oklahoma and Texas A&M are top 10 teams. So it's kind of like waiting the progression of this program versus what they face so far. But I mean, we have to look at this. Like Jackson Arnold is 14th in the SEC in quarterback rating. I mean, at some point, he just is who he is. And it's not a knock on him. It's that Auburn's going to have to figure out what he's doing well. I like the way he ran the ball against Baylor. Probably going to have to get him more involved in maybe some quick game, because they clearly have issues right now on the offensive line. I mean, that schedule does provide a path to bowl eligibility. If you give them wins over Mercer and Kentucky, you only got to pull off one in there. I could see the Missouri game being a good letdown. If you beat Alabama, you turn around and go on the road to Auburn. Who knows with Arkansas at this point? I feel like they'll get to a bowl game, but I also think that 6-6 is not exactly what they should be aiming for too.
Right. And you said something critical there, Stephen. You said, well, Oklahoma and A&M are top 10. Well, so is Georgia. And
yeah,
if Missouri wins their next game against Bama, they're top 10. So it's not necessarily getting any easier. You know what?
Right. That's the other thing. And maybe it's just me and watching the two games with Oklahoma, Auburn, Texas A&M, Auburn. We talked about the score for Texas A&M and Auburn. It also felt like maybe both times that what was on the scoreboard and how the two teams looked was wider. And I think that would worry me, especially kind of where you are at this point of Hugh Freeze's program. We've seen the turnaround. Mike Elko has been able to get going. What Brent Venables did this offseason. At some point, you kind of think that those additions should start to hit and turn your program around, kind of similar we've seen other places.
Mm-hmm. And again, it's probably unlikely, Stephen, but who knows? What if old Bobby P strolls in here with his motorcycle and gets some momentum going? I mean, these are the games that could define whether he keeps that job, and I don't think he will. But you beat Auburn, that's how you win the job. You know what?
Yeah. I hope Petrino's is was it Greg Knox who came in on the 4-wheeler? Let Petrino ride into the stadium on the motorcycle, right?
Oh, it's happening. It's happening. All right, who else are you panicked about here, Stephen?
I'm going to panic about Georgia, Mike. I'm going to set the panic meter at 7. And this is, and let me kind of frame this. I'm not worried about Georgia falling apart. What I'm worried about is setting that championship standard.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm measuring Georgia up to that level, I'm worried whether or not they can get there. So that's why it's at 7. We mentioned it with Georgia, Alabama, that coverage, pressure, not good enough. And how are they going to be able to turn that around? I do think, offensive line's pretty young. Run game could get better. Maybe as a team, some of that youth turns into experience, which turns into more production later. They may also be the Ohio State of this year, which is they lose, early and they get better later. But still, I think there's more questions here. And that's why I'm kind of worried about, like, if it's a championship standard, my panic meter is about a 7, because I'm not sure that they can reach it based upon what we saw on Saturday, absent big time improvement.
Yeah, I hear you. And I don't disagree with everything you just said. Logical, weighed out nicely. But I still look at Georgia like old Michael Myers. You just can't kill him. You know what I mean? Heck, even I thought Ole Miss killed him last year, and they just kept crawling. You know, I think just Bama. Bama's the only. Bama's there, Michael Myers. But beyond that, I still think Kirby, even though boneheaded decisions last Saturday, albeit that, I still think he's the best coach, and this is still a gritty ass program here where they'll find a way. Yes, I'm disappointed, but I still think they're the class. And hell, I probably should have thrown them into who's going to win the SEC, but it wouldn't surprise me if they bounce back and win the national championship. Not at all.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think of the programs that we were talking about in that national kind of championship discussion, Georgia is the one I probably have like the most confidence as far as like staff, program, amidst all the changes. If like we're looking at some of these teams and seeing Mateer sparked Oklahoma, but Georgia's the one constant. Like Ole Miss has a lot of new faces, Missouri does too. There's a lot of change in these other programs. Georgia's dealing with a lot of change too in terms of personnel. But I know one thing, and they still have Kirby Smart, and I think they're going to figure this out over the rest of the season. And so I'm a little panicked. It's maybe a little bit high because of what we saw Saturday, but I think they're going to get this figured out.
Shout out cousin Carl, Stephen. He gave us $10. He says, so Stephen claims Georgia's a decaying dynasty.
Just taking after SEC Mike there, right?
The decaying dogs. You know what?
It's going to be hard to I think it's going to be hard in the 12-team era to go like back to back as national champions, but Georgia would be one of the teams that could. And I think that's what's interesting to me about the rest of the season, is seeing how all this young talent meshes. And maybe Saturday was a wake-up call for him too, and get better from here.
I think it was a wake-up for Brandon McIver. Appreciate you, buddy. He just gifted Stephen to Darren Kendall. Darren, welcome to
the family.
Courtesy of Brandon McIver. All right, anyone else, Stephen, on the panic meter?
I'm going to panic about LSU's offense, Mike.
What? Didn't you hear what Brian Kelly said? No.
No questions about the offense. Mike, I think I said this earlier. I think LSU's defense is better than it was last season. That doesn't matter if you're scoring, 20 points a game. This is an offense that's got a lot of firepower at receiver. They've got one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Offensive line is struggling. They can't run the ball. Garrett Nussmeier doesn't look like himself. If this team is going to make the playoff, they better get this fixed ASAP. And I think you compare that to what Ole Miss has done. And this is kind of why I thought Lane Kiffin did such a great job on Saturday, is you look at all the change that Ole Miss had last year to this year: offensive line, receivers, running back, all those changes, and they just put up over 400 yards of offense. Now, granted, that Nussmeier must be hurt worse than they're leading on. It's been a couple years now that outside of Jaden Daniels being able to run the ball, LSU's really struggled to manufacture a push from a running back. I'm a little bit worried, Mike, because we talk playoff standard here. this doesn't get better in a hurry, the Gator Bowl's looking like where LSU's headed and not the college football playoff.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't necessarily disagree with that, Stephen. With again, you can laugh at this in years past. I'm not laughing at it now, but road trip to Vanderbilt, at Bama, at Oklahoma. I mean, is it fair to say they'd be fortunate to go 1-2 in those three?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Provided John Mateer returns and it's the last game of the season, but so I would assume, but and that's just completely overlooking Carolina at home, A&M at home. Man, yeah. So again, I'm not with that defense. They'll be in every ball game, but it's man. And what if? I mean, we can't just snap our fingers and Garrett Nussmeier gets better. I couldn't believe it, Stephen, watching him throw the football. I mean, every pass, it seemed to have like no arm strength on it. I mean, even the first and one of the very few, I believe, it may have been the only one where he pushed the ball down the field and completed the pass. I believe it was to Xavier Thomas. It basically was completed because he underthrew it so poorly, and the defensive back failed to adjust to it. You know what I mean? So, I mean, in that regard, it helped LSU, but clearly no other ones. But it's hard to fathom what they were thinking leaving him out there.
Yeah, and do you think about the downfield element to this LSU offense? Nussmeier was one of the top quarterbacks in the SEC last year at like completions of 30-plus yards. And he's only got, I think, 4 completions of 30-plus yards so far this year. And I mean, it's not like we're talking like playing the gauntlet of defenses so far. I mean, Florida has been good and Ole Miss certainly solid too. I'm thinking ahead a little bit, Mike, and I'm just thinking, man, if this offensive line doesn't get a lot better, what a nightmare it's going to be when they play like Oklahoma on the season. I mean, we just saw what Oklahoma did to Auburn's offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, LSU's going to, I mean, that's going to be a brutal matchup for Nussmeier and that offensive line. I think it's really hard in a season, to kind of figure out an offensive line and have it gel. It's almost like you kind of have to be halfway there in the preseason and you kind of get there during the season. I don't know that they're close. And the fact that they can't manufacture a running game right now, they're just too one-dimensional on offense and leaning on a quarterback that appears to be hurt worse than we think. Now, maybe the off week, they can get him healthy, but I got big concerns right now for LSU.
Hey, shout out to, Brandon. He gave us, or he just gifted a donation. So I wanted to ask you this, Stephen. LSU, next game, Carolina. They get 2 weeks to prepare. Carolina also gets 2 weeks to prepare. Hey, I'm rooting for Nuss. I want him to. I hate seeing him injured because remember, he could be in the NFL right now. He came back. He wants to win. He's gutting it out. He's probably the reason they didn't sit him is because he refused to be sat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he's that type of guy. So I'm rooting for him. But if he doesn't, if the rest doesn't cure what's currently ailing him, how many points do you think it takes to win South Carolina? I'm basically like first one to 20, perhaps, because neither one of these teams can really effectively run the football. I do, of course, like LSU's defense matched up against South Carolina offense, but Lenore Sellers is capable of doing some dynamic things out there. He can't do it himself, but if it legitimately is first to 20 in this next ball game, who knows what that is, Stephen? A kick return, a block punt, a play like that, Beamer ball, could be the difference in the ball game.
I'm sure South Carolina hasn't forgotten the ending of last year's game, right? So
Right.
probably a little extra motivation. I think you kind of summed that up well, just thinking about down the road about that game. I trust LSU's defense in this spot. And I trust her at home. I also think that in a game where 1 or 2 plays might swing it, I think you kind of trust, like, if Sellers is healthy, maybe he makes a play off of like a broken tackle. There's a 70-yard touchdown. In that kind of scenario, like I could talk myself into like South Carolina, keep making this, I certainly think it'll be a 4-quarter game, but I think it's almost like which quarterback is given the questions is going to be able to manufacture 20 points. I think you like LSU at home, but I think you also like Sellers' ability to manufacture something if the rest of the offense is sputtering too.
And don't forget, Stephen, and all the cousins out there, if you take nothing else from this episode, we're just 2 days away from Cocktober, says Razor Bass.
And Bobby Petrino was just hired. So.
Yeah. All right. Anything else? Any other panics that you got here?
I got one more for you, Mike. How about Lane Kiffin? Trinidad, Austin Simmons. What do you do? Panic meter 10.
The SEC favorites, they may have some drama in that quarterback room. That could be the only thing that gets them, right?
Right. First of all, A+ trolling on Lane Kiffin's part to tweet that picture of Brian Kelly's comments right after the game. A+ trolling. So love the trolling efforts in this conference. Mike, I sort of joke like panic meter level 10 here for the Ole Miss quarterback situation. The reality is they got two very good quarterbacks. And I don't know that I would not change that. I would keep riding Trinidad Chambliss as long as you can. You get Austin Simmons healthy. We've seen a lot of teams have quarterback injuries. You might need him again later this year. Maybe teams figure out what Chambliss is doing well, and you go back to Simmons. But right now, I don't think you can change. I know Austin Simmons is going to be very good at Ole Miss. I think this is Trinidad Chambliss' job to lose. You agree?
I mean, it's kind of hard to disagree. Hard to disagree, given everything that he's accomplished thus far. And now I was not willing to admit that 100% until I saw him against LSU's defense. But the way he performed, I don't know how you go back to him.
I think you have to ride the hot hand in this scenario. As simple as it sounds, the offense is rolling. Love the mobility, the things, the kind of the adjustments they made to get the offense going last week. Keywan Lacey's running hard too, tough yardage. I don't know. I don't think you can change it after this. I think if you play at Georgia, the offense sputters, you can go back to Simmons, but I think it's got to be Chambliss for now.
All right, Stephen, let's fast forward here or look ahead, whatever you want to say, to week 6 in the SEC. We only got 5 games. Which game are you most anticipating this weekend in the SEC?
Mike, how about that Alabama and Vanderbilt game? Number 16 versus number 10. I mean, talk about a crazy season to see Vanderbilt and Alabama getting game day. It's maybe the biggest game of the weekend. I think so many things about that are just fascinating right off the jump. But also think about what happened last year. Vanderbilt knocking off Alabama. Now Vanderbilt goes to Tuscaloosa a week after Vanderbilt just had this big win. Alabama beating Georgia on the road. So Vanderbilt's catching Alabama at the right time. And we wondered about consistency for Kalen DeBoer's team. Well, they got a chance to show it here. Also, I'm thinking about what Florida State did in the season opener. And I think about all the fakes and motions and stuff that Castellanos and Gus Malzahn threw at Alabama's defense and the headaches that they gave Alabama's defense. I think Diego Pavia and this team are going to do the same thing on Saturday. They are going to be a nightmare for this Alabama team to get ready for.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't play with discipline on the defensive side of the football, you are going to be in trouble with how explosive Vanderbilt has been this year. And can they duplicate it? I mean, tough task, certainly, but I think honestly, Diego's got a heck of a lot better weapons around him this year. So that's kind of interesting. Eli Stowers, I think this is going to be a huge game for him. He's going to have to win some big-time matchups, I think. Alabama revenge factor, we'll see. But, I think this could be a very high-scoring game and should be a great one.
Also, Vanderbilt double-digit underdog. Not getting much respect here. I also think about the style, too. I know this is kind of like basic, but if I'm Alabama, I want to come out and just punch out Vanderbilt right away. I want to get up on 14-0 because I think if they drag you into one of these games where you're touching the ball 1 time, 2 times a quarter, your margin for error gets pretty small. And I think in that case, you really like Diego Pavia and their chances to win this game. I know the odds, the talent, it's stacked against Vanderbilt here. But consistency has been an issue for Alabama. And also, I think this I think Pavia can go in here and make this a much closer game than what the spread indicates.
And not that you're predicting the game today or anything, Stephen, but if Vanderbilt was to do the unthinkable and beat Alabama 2 years in a row and obviously in Tuscaloosa, number 16, how high should Vanderbilt rise in the polls if they can win at Alabama?
Top 10. Because if you're beating a top 10 team, they need to be in there next week. And I know Vanderbilt's had a pretty iffy schedule when you beat Charleston Southern and Georgia State and Utah State. But at that point, they would have beaten South Carolina on the road 31-7, and they would have beaten Alabama in that scenario. And so to me, that's a top 10 team.
Remember, Diego said they're going to win the national championship. Maybe we'll start to believe it if they actually get that win on Saturday. All right, what about what is the second game maybe you're most anticipating?
I am anticipating the quarterback disappointment bowl between DJ Lagway and Arch Manning. The other part of this is, if you just think about the way this game is kind of setting up, it's two good defenses. And so I'm fascinated. Lagway's been banged up. We think Arch may be kind of back on track after that Sam Houston game. Is either one of these, I would not be surprised if both offenses really struggle in this game. And maybe the game's kind of played that way because both these defenses are good. So I'm kind of trying to figure out who's going to manufacture 17 to 20 points here. The other part of this is the injury report. Both these teams have been banged up. Texas got some running backs banged up. Florida's with Lagway. Sounds like Dallas Wilson will be back, which is a boost to this offense. But also there's the setup. Because if Florida loses this game and it's not close, you wonder what happens Sunday. And if there's a chance, if Florida's going to save its season, starts here by beating Texas.
Shout out Junior. He said final score, Texas 5, Florida 3. 2 field goals. Then Napier orders Lagway to run for safety so he can get the ball back with better field position.
I was thinking maybe there might be 12 players on the field that a 10-10 game, and Florida's got 12 guys on. Texas misses the field goal. There's 12 guys on the field. They've got to re-kick it. He wins it 13-10, and that's the perfect way to sum up the Billy Napier era.
Hey, shout out Just Jared. He gifted a membership, Stephen, to Brandon Mitchum. Brandon, welcome to
the family.
Appreciate you, Jared. Your LSU Tigers are going to be just fine. I'm not overreacting to one loss, I'll tell you that. But, first 1-14 probably. Now, again, last year probably doesn't have much to do with this year, Stephen, but if you recall, Sarkisian dialed up some stuff against Florida. So he really had the number of Florida's defense. Now, this is kind of when they started to turn around on the defensive side of the football, but that's something I can't get out of my mind because they toasted their ass. So
yeah,
it's in the swamp. Again, we'll see how this crowd is, but I would think if I'm a Florida fan, this is all right. I think 99% of them are out on Napier, but maybe this is the one where hey, you know what? This could be the last fun game of the year. Let's just show up. They keep showing up. They haven't had a home game in a while. I hope it's a crowd. I hope it's not just a full on Austin or not Austin, burnt orange crowd, but it very well could be because Texas, so rarely gets to go to the swamp. They'll get to go more often, obviously. But I would imagine there's going to be a lot of Texas people in Gainesville on Saturday.
Absolutely. And I know this is a super simple way to think about this game, Mike, but Florida scored 7 points against Miami. They scored 10 against LSU, and they scored 16 against South Florida. I think the Texas defense is better than all those groups. And I think that's what's interesting in this game is, you mentioned the matchup of Sarkisian versus the Florida defense and kind of wonder, did Arch really get going against Sam Houston? They've had an off week to get going. If they have turned a corner, I think we leave this game talking a lot more, thinking, Texas is really is back in that conversation. And I think if this game is not close, I think we're having a conversation about maybe the end for Napier.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to ask you, but you kind of answered the question. If this is lopsided, do you think this could be it?
I think so. The trend seems to be bye weeks.
Right.
So there's a chance this
He's
could
got some time.
yeah, a couple more weeks to maybe clean out his office. But I think if you bottom out, you hit rock bottom, you lose this game. I don't know how. There's kind of this element of like, how do you bring him back to the swamp to Mississippi State and go through this again and deal with the booze? And maybe you give your team a chance to get a fresh start for that second half and try to make a bowl game at that point.
Okay. What would be the third game you're most anticipating in the conference?
It's got to be Mississippi State at Texas A&M. This is Mississippi State's kind of first true road game. They played at Southern Miss earlier this year, but they've played Arizona State and Tennessee at home. I'm fascinated to see that they've made so much improvement since last year. How does it carry over to the road? And then I think the other part of this for Texas A&M is, we've seen this, both sides of the ball seem to be coming together at the right time for Texas A&M. They're a big favorite here. Can they take care of business at home? Or is this game come down to the wire again, like Auburn, a game they controlled pretty much for the most part? So a lot of intrigue for me just to see how Mississippi State looks. And then for Texas A&M, can they kind of just take control in a matchup that they're favored and should win?
Yeah, and again, I don't know that this literally has anything to do with Saturday night's game, but historically, Mississippi State plays A&M very, very well for whatever reason. So this could really be a battle. I'm fascinated to watch this one. And given what I've seen from Mississippi State, I think they could take A&M to the wire. I think they can even win in College Station. Now, I think they're an underdog for a reason, but again, based on what I saw last weekend, wouldn't surprise me in the least if Mississippi State has a lead in the fourth quarter. You know what?
Are you concerned at all about Mississippi State's maybe line of scrimmage in this game?
Well, I know that it's kind of silly to say because Blake Shapen got blown up a couple times by Tennessee's defense. But beyond that, they were kind of having their way on the ground, and Tennessee didn't run that well on Mississippi State, I didn't think. So, no, I'm starting to believe in Mississippi State on the line of scrimmage.
I think what kind of worries me is just thinking about what Texas A&M did to Auburn last week. I know.
Here's the key difference. Jeff Lebby knows what he's doing.
True. 100% that he could game plan around it. I'm just thinking that, at times the pass protection has been a bit of an issue for Mississippi State. We saw this against Tennessee. Mm-hmm. And I'm just thinking going on the road, hostile environment. We saw this A&M pass rushers tee off last week, that you get into that situation. If you can't run it, you get to long yardage, and Cassius Howe and those pass rushers kind of tee off on Shapen.
And it's a blackout for those that believe in such things. So how about Kentucky at Georgia, Stephen? Again, big spread here. It's always a big spread, Stephen. But when these two get together, I know they've won a ton in a row. Heck, they beat anybody not named Alabama. They beat you basically quite a bit. But for whatever reason, I don't know. We say this every year and we never buy it. And we'll get to the predictions later in the week, and I'll say 48-10. Georgia's going to win, and then next thing you know, Kentucky's going to be taking them into the fourth quarter. Oh, thoughts on this one?
Shouldn't this one be a lopsided affair though?
They all should be.
Right. Right. I want to see angry Georgia here. After the loss, and you're right, this series has been weird. Last year was 13-12, and the games in Lexington seem to be close. The last 6 games between these two played in Athens were decided by 17 points or more. And some of those games have been a little weird in between there. But I think if I'm Georgia, I want to see this team put last week in the rearview mirror, come out, look impressive, and dominate an opponent that they should. And if Boley and Kentucky have success moving the ball either on the ground or through the air, I think that's a really bad sign, because Kentucky probably the worst offense in the SEC. And if they move it up and down, we got even bigger concerns about Georgia. But I just think anger, like thinking about the rest of the season, like this is a game that I want to see Georgia take control early and win, and not some, 23-13 kind of game.
Mm-hmm. And then, so final one here, Oklahoma hosting Kent State. Is this all about Michael Hawkins and seeing how he fits into the Ben Arbuckle offense?
100%, Mike. Kent State is 135, 136 in the country. They have been blown out by both Texas Tech and Florida State this year. So if this game is close, we got problems in Norman. I don't think it will. I just want to see Michael Hawkins and see what he's able to do, because I do subscribe to the idea that he will be a better quarterback this year because he's got Ben Arbuckle. He's got a better functioning offensive line. He's got a better receiving core. There was a lot that went on wrong around him last year. So I think he's going to play better, and this is the perfect opponent to get ready for Texas if they need him to.
Over under 6.5 points Kent State scores.
I'll go with the over. I'll go 1 touchdown.
Okay.
Because they scored 14 on Texas Tech and 10 on Florida State. So you're working your way down.
They're getting better.
You get 7 this week. Yeah.
They'll score on the backups. Got it.
Yeah.
All right, Stephen, we went way long on this one. Really appreciate all your time. I can't make you go any longer here. Before you go, though, can you remind the cousins how to follow you and how to find your work?
Absolutely. You can read all my work over at athlonsports.com. You can follow me on Twitter at athlonsteven and StephenLCFB on Instagram and Facebook.
Okay, Stephen, thank you so very much. We truly appreciate you. We'll be back tomorrow. We got the Roush Hour in the morning. We'll have cousin Shane back. Same time as always, 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 Central, to preview these games. Until then, we will see you on the next. Oh, real quick, shout outs. Appreciate you, JP. Shout outs, cousin JR, the Norwegian Method, Steven Up. Brandon Riley, Austin Wayne, Carl Junkins, Cameron Williams, Brandon McIver, Serial Killer, Just Jared Jr., and Sam G789. Thank you, JP. We'll catch you on the next one.
Hey, buddy, this beer's for you, Mike, and cousin Shane. That SEC podcast loves the Pirate, and the Pirate loves that SEC podcast. Hail State.